Good afternoon, Roger.
Good
You're
afternoon.
here. You're here first.
Well, I just thought it's good, just in case
Ah,
there's anything that I need to be briefed about. How many
okay,
people
that's
are you
great.
expecting?
Madhurima, are you there? Madhurima? Meenakshi? Because then they will take your, they'll give you the screen share option. What were you asking, sorry? You asking
I'm just
something?
asking how many people are you expecting?
I don't know. It depends on how many they sent the link to, but 250 had registered.
Oh, my goodness me. Wow,
But
wow,
I don't know
wow.
how many got the link and then how many come on. I mean, that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how's this gonna, I mean, is everybody
It's going
gonna,
to have to be oracular style. You just have to give a lecture like a good.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
is everybody gonna be, have their video on or what? Will I
Probably
get to
not.
see anybody?
You probably will not. In fact, you haven't even seen me, right? I'm going to put my
No, not
video
at all.
on.
You're
Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
you're
Okay.
all.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Here I am.
Yeah, you are real. Okay, very good.
Yeah, I am
Yep.
real. So I don't know how many will put it on, but the problem is
Yeah.
when we have, I don't know how this is going to go. Madhurima should log on, then I'll know. I'll just call her. But if there are too many people, then there's too much of a disturbance. So basically, they're going to mute everybody and
Yeah.
put the video off, and you just deliver. And in case they have any problems or questions, they'll put it on the chat.
Okay.
So yeah, I think people can understand. When you speak, I think you've dealt with the Bhopalis,
yeah.
but this will not just be Bhopal. Actually, there are smaller districts than Bhopal, so we have a
Okay.
lot of affiliated. They've made you the host, so that's good.
Yes, yeah, that's right. I've got my screen share all set up. That can work. That's
Yeah,
not a
they've
problem.
made you the host. Madhurima,
And
can
maybe
we see
then,
you? Meenakshi
sorry?
and Madhurima, if they're there, I was saying if they're there, we can see them.
Yes, they should. Because again, it would be really, I don't intend to have the chat open probably, so that then if, so again, are we really tight on it? It must be an hour? And there'll be everyone
you
will
can
be.
go.
Okay.
No. You can go beyond. But
I don't want to go beyond, but if, towards the end, and I say, if anybody has a question, and they could put it into the chat room, probably is the best way to go. Yeah. And then.
Yeah, in fact, Meenakshi will say it right at the start also.
Perfect.
Because in case people have a problem with the English, because our accents are different and things like that. So right from the beginning, I don't know, sometimes I've seen people just really going crazy on the chat, but let's see once they come in.
Yep.
Madhurima, can we see you? So she is the one who's going to let everybody else in.
Yep. Okay.
So you're the most punctual one. We have a joke. Oh, here she is coming in. Madhurima, can we see you? Hello. We can hear you. We can't see you. Can we see you also?
Yes.
Madhurima, how many people coming in?
Maybe, ma'am, 200 approx. 100 plus participants are.
Thank you. That's what I was telling Roger. He wanted to do some little group work and all. I said, not in India, not in Madhya Pradesh.
I mean, if I was running this, yes, I mean, with real people rather than virtual, then probably I would get them to work on the, sharing a story, because there's one thing kind of understanding it here on a cerebral level, but it's quite another thing to actually try and find a story from and put it into your own words, which is an important aspect of of doing this. So I can float some ideas today, but whether they will actually be game to actually try it or not, that's another matter altogether.
No, it's also a lot of people will be there from other colleges. So if people want to follow up, they will follow up and do it in smaller groups. Like we'll do it probably in our college, in our class.
Okay. Yeah.
So we'll take it on in a smaller group.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
So you can relax for a little while. If you want to put your video off and take a walk and come back, you can.
No, that's right. No. This is
because
good.
I think this is unprecedented. We have the expert on before anybody else.
Well, no, because I think it's good to actually I quite like chatting to people who come into the room early.
Oh, that's nice. That'd be nice.
Just because to get some sense. So yesterday, this time yesterday, and I was working with a group of 20 kind of 8 to 10-year-olds, and these are kind of high-flying kids, and the school wants to produce an e-newsletter, and so my job is to try and help them to, you know, get ideas for that and to write it. So it was just interesting to talk with them and about, you know, what their experience was like because of the COVID, how that's interrupted their learning and how they feel about it, you know, as 8, 9, and 10-year-olds. And it was good. It was good.
Really? They had things to say about it?
Of course they had things to say about it. And, you know, seeing it from their perspective. One of them was saying they don't have access now to the chemistry, the science labs, right? And so, and so now the teacher will come into their classroom and he does the experiment, but they're not allowed to do the experiment. And of course, I mean, the whole fun of science, isn't it, is that you can get hands-on and cut things up and mix things and cause explosions and stuff. So that was fascinating, you know, just to hear it from. I hadn't thought about it from that point of view. And then I asked them what's good about the school. What do you think is special about your school? And there's one kid in this group who is obviously on the special needs spectrum. You know, she'd be singing to herself, and whenever you asked a question, she had like 15 responses. You know, immediate, and no filtering at all. And yet, so she said, "Oh, what's great about this place is that we're very accepting of people with special needs and make people feel very comfortable." And I'm like, wow, you know. And so that's
8 to 10-year-old,
she's 10, I think. She's in the P5. So, but you know, I mean, she's obviously sharing. She feels very comfortable, and nobody in that group was kind of going, "Oh, for heaven's sake, you know, shut up." No, they were this, and the teacher was very tolerant of her, and you know, when she was singing away, because you know, I wanted them to have the mics on, so we had some interaction. It was really important to get their thoughts and ideas, and so of course for her to be quiet for more than 30 seconds was really tough. But the teacher was great. Was very, you know, was very kind of calm and whatever, and finally muted her. So, you know, so it's good. Hello.
Oh, there is Bhasha ma'am. That's our HOD. I wrote to you and she wrote to you. So that's Bhasha.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Spotlight her. Huh? You're on mute. Bhasha, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, Roja.
Hi, Bhasha. Thank you so much for inviting me to be with you today.
Yeah. I hope this would be a really interesting session.
I hope so. Otherwise, I'll be in big trouble.
Yes, because
and Benita will never speak to me again.
No, not like that. But I knew you'd be good because he's worked with our literati kids, right? So I knew he knew.
Really fun. Yeah. Did you get to see the video of the film that we made, Benita?
No, I didn't get to see that. No,
oh my goodness, I should send it you. Yeah, this is a script that I wrote for a drama competition, gosh, 20 years ago, for a girls' school. And most of the kids in the literati group were girls. And so we relocated it from Singapore in
that one I saw that one, but you were doing another one also.
We did another one, yeah, which was a retelling of the Pandora story.
That we
and really trying to put that, you know, from Pandora's point of view, and how the gods, all men, of course, you know, were saying, don't open the box, don't. And she was this kind of free-spirited girl who's saying, why not?
And this is Meenakshi. Meenakshi will be moderating the entire program. Meenakshi, meet Roger.
Hi, Meenakshi. Nice to see you.
Meenakshi, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah. Hello, sir.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, sir. Thanks, same to you.
Good. So, so you're going to do some introduction and kind of lay down some ground rules for the participants?
Participants, yes.
Rules will be yours, Roger.
Sorry?
It's all yours, yes. If our Honorable Vice Chancellor and Chaubey sir come, then maybe they'll do a little speech making. Otherwise, it'll be all you. But what's happening? I think they can enter the participants. They can allow them to come in now.
Yeah. But Meenakshi, you're going to talk about the chat room and asking questions and that kind of thing.
Actually, sir, I'll keep an eye on the. Yeah, sir. Yeah, sir. I'll
Okay.
manage all those things.
And if because I won't have the chat room open because I want to get the have my screen share and everything. But if you're getting lots of comments like we can't understand him or please slow down, then can I rely on you just to chip in and say, Roger, could you just take it slower or something?
Abhi 17 to hai.
Can? Meenakshi, could you do that?
Yeah, sir. What, sir?
As I say, if you're getting that feedback on the chat that people are struggling to understand me because I'm too fast or something.
No, sir.
Don't
It's
be shy
okay.
about interrupting and saying, Roger, could you just
slow down? Okay, I'll tell.
down.
Okay, I'll manage. Okay.
Okay. I mean, it's because it's very difficult when I'm not there, I'm not seeing them. So I not getting that response is really tough.
No, I'll manage. I'll keep an eye, and I'll definitely I'll tell you if you go with the speed. I'll definitely show you the hand, and I'll tell you that.
Okay,
sir.
excellent.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. Okay.
We do have some participants who've logged on already. So if anybody wants to talk to Roger or ask some questions before, you can all unmute yourself and ask. Yeah.
I really like seeing who I'm actually talking to. It's very strange just to.
Professor Shilpa Sharma, I think. And so anybody who wants to just ask somebody your chat can just.
I would love to know who it is and what it is that you're studying, for example, and how old you are. So this is a group of like 5, 6, and 7-year-olds, is it?
No way. These are all college engineering students. I mean, what would 4, 5-year-olds do with a CV and an interview, employment interview?
Very good.
So there, and Chaube ji will join it. Yeah, Vipin Khandelwal is saying hello, sir. So Vipin, why don't you unmute yourself and speak to him?
Unmute and why don't you unmute and turn on your video as well?
Yes, everybody can unmute and speak for now. Prajwal, yes, pharmacy students, good. So why don't you unmute yourself? You can have a chat and ask any questions if you want to. Yeah. You can also show your video. You don't have to, but if you want to.
I do. I have a chemical-based story. It's not about medicine, but it has a chemical element. I'll be telling that story today.
Hello, sir. This is Professor Shilpa Sharma from MITM College, Ujjain.
Yeah. Shilpa, what is it? Yes? Did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I just don't have any question to ask, but I just would like to listen to the sir, what he says.
Okay, you're more than welcome. Welcome to RGPV.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. So anybody else? We have time. We have about 5 minutes. If anybody has anything special, if there's anything you want to ask, put it in the chat.
Neeta ji, the Vice Chancellor actually has a meeting in Vallabh Bhavan, and he had the meeting at 11. So he might log in as he's on the move.
Okay, no problem.
We'll have to wait for him. As soon as he joins, then we can
we could start, and then whenever he comes in, we'll pause and he can say a few words. If Roger doesn't mind that.
The meeting continues till 12 because meeting was at 11. So he might be free. I'm just messaging him. Let me see what he says.
Okay. And also Chaube sir, I think, will join at 12.
Okay, that is good.
Prajwal is asking what is the motto of this webinar. So Prajwal, Roger is an international storyteller from Singapore. And he will tell you about how you can tell your story so that you can get, an interview, your CV. So, Roger, would you answer that better than me? Yes. What is
yeah,
the webinar
it's a really
about?
good question, and I haven't thought. I don't have a motto for the webinar. Let me have to think about that one as I go through. What might be the I think probably the very first quote that I've got actually in the, you'll see in the slideshare, that to be human is to have a story to tell. And which is by the Danish writer Isaac Dinesen, because I think that's very true. This is how we communicate. It's through stories. And it's, for me, it's the one thing that defines us as a species. As far as we know, I think only human beings tell stories. I don't think, lions come back to the den at night and tell the cubs about the gazelle that got away. Actually, the lion is probably more likely to eat his cubs because he doesn't like competition. You know what I mean? That as humans, we're always telling stories all the time. So really, that's what I just want to get you thinking about, because otherwise we tend to forget how important stories are. So, yeah. Stories help us to remember what we otherwise tend to forget. This is obviously going to be a politer audience than the one I had yesterday. I was sharing with you, Vanita. The 8, 9, and 10-year-olds, they had no hesitation when they were given. The first question was, how old are you? The second
you can answer every question they ask you. You can answer for our audience also. We have about 46 now here. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So where are you from?
So can you tell them all that while they're waiting?
Oh, okay. Well, you may have been surprised when I was introduced as a Singaporean, but I am a Singaporean, and I was actually born in Singapore a long, long, long time ago, sort of, about 1,000 years ago. But to British parents. My father was in the Air Force, and he spent his war, the Second World War, in India. He was sent to Peshawar, which of course in those days was not Pakistan, it was the northwest frontier. And then in 1938, and when war broke out, he was there, and so stuck in India, and spent up until 1942, he was very lucky. He was asked to bring a group of very old, ancient planes, which I don't know how long they'd been in India, but the kind of old, the biplanes, 2 wings and made of wood and canvas. And he was in charge. He was a mechanic. He wasn't a pilot. But he and his team of obviously Indian crewmen were tasked to fly the plane from India, I think from just outside Delhi, to Singapore, because they knew the Japanese were going to invade Singapore. So this was late November, December 1941. And he got as far as what is now Myanmar, Burma. And on Christmas morning, the Japanese flew over and shot up all the planes, which meant that my father couldn't fly down to Singapore, which was very lucky, because 2 months later, the Japanese invaded Singapore, and he would have been interned if he had. But instead, his problem then, and this was his big war story, was that he had about a dozen men, Indians, who he knew that he had to get out of Myanmar, Burma, because if the Japanese had caught them, I think they would have been dealt with very severely. So he managed to get them out, found a boat, and sailed up the Hooghly to what is now Kolkata. So anyway, he was then transferred to Singapore, and that's where I was born, but I grew up in UK. And then I came back as a drama teacher. That was my, what I did in a former life. I was a drama teacher, and then became a theatre director. And then I discovered storytelling about 20 years ago, almost exactly. And I abandoned theatre pretty much and became a storyteller. But that's another story. And yes, because I was born in Singapore, that made it very easy for me to give up my British citizenship. Oh, what? You gave up your British citizenship? Yes, I did. And I'm very proudly a Singaporean, have been for almost 30 years now.
Vaibhav Chaturvedi has asked, I think, a question. Oh, sir has come. Chaubey sir has come. Good morning, sir. Good afternoon, sir. So here is our TQIP coordinator, SC Chaubey sir. Madhurima, can you just put him on the Yeah, spotlight him so that he can. And Meenakshi, should we start?
Madam, have you requested?
Yes, sir. We've requested the vice chancellor. Yes, sir. But I think sir is in Vallabh Bhavan. I had just talked with Nanak, and he said he's in a meeting and he might join. So shall we wait for him?
Let us. Otherwise, if he is Vallabh Bhavan, then it will be difficult to join right now. Probably at the end of this meeting, we can invite him.
Okay.
Let us.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Because I have SMS'd him.
Otherwise, Madam, have you talked to Mr. Joshi?
I have talked to Nanak Santani. Sir, can you hear me?
So, sir, should we begin? Chaubey sir, should we begin?
Sir, you have to unmute yourself.
Where are you? I can't see you, Meenakshi. We have to begin.
Yeah, okay.
So can we begin? मैंने VC साहब को वैसे WhatsApp किया हुआ है, पर उनका response नहीं आया.
Okay.
So he must be in the meeting.
Yeah.
So yeah, रुक जाए sir थोड़ी देर, because Nanak was saying he can join on the way back also.
No, just I will talk to Mr. Joshi and let us see that whether he's if he's available. Then just 1 minute, I will talk to Mr.
Yes,
Joshi.
yes.
Sure.
No hurry, sir. Yes.
Okay.
In the meantime, anyone else who's got any questions? Let me see. 57 people now here. Yes, this is Vaibhav Chaturvedi was asking whether telling our stories, sometimes we hesitate to do that. Sometimes we have no one to tell that. So does writing diaries going to help developing that and knowing ourselves? To which Prajwal is saying something. Yes. So, sir, that was the question. Will writing diaries help? We have no one to hear our stories.
Okay. So there's two parts to that question. It's important to remember that the way that we speak and the way that we write is very different. And that when we tell a story, as opposed to when we write a story, the words that we use, the way that we put words together is quite different. So I would say certainly writing down as a pre-exercise can be good because it'll help focus your thoughts and think, what are the things that I want to say? And this is something that I'm going to talk about in a short while. More important what you leave out than what you actually put in, possibly. But secondly, if you don't have someone to listen to, I don't believe that. You have friends, you have people, and you should say to them, you buttonhole your friend, listen, I would like to tell you my story, okay? Because I know I've got an interview coming up and I want to tell you my 3-minute story, okay? Would you do me the favor of listening and then giving me feedback on the story? And you should, I'm sure you've got people who would be willing to do that, okay? And that they perform a very important function, and not least to make sure that they hear the story that you want to tell. Because it may be that when you tell the story, what comes across is, I'm fantastic and I'm wonderful and I'm going to save the world. And that's not really what it is that you're trying to say, okay? And so you think, oh, then because you've got that feedback, that you're going to change the way that you tell the story so that the next time that somebody hears it, they'll actually hear the message that you want to take, them to take from the story. So it is important to find people who are listening, and of course to be a good listener yourself. Unfortunately nowadays, that is something that perhaps the younger generation is not so good at. It's all about me, me, me. Let me tell you. I'm going to put something here on Twitter, but we don't actually want to read what other people have put on, and it's boring. But I want to tell you all about what I had for lunch. Oh yes, oh yeah. But I don't really want to read what you had for lunch, okay? So developing the ability to listen to other people probably is, if you're going to become a storyteller, the best thing you can do is start listening and listening to other people tell stories. I see there's a raised something or other, raised arm or a raised hand.
Is there? There is Aditi. Aditi Dubey, you want to ask your question?
Good morning.
Yes.
I have dropped my question in chat box. So should I ask or you will raise the question?
Yes, ask Aditi. You can even show us your video.
Right now it's not working. So
doesn't matter. Yes.
Morning everyone, and congratulations for organizing this webinar. My question is, since we teach communication skills to students, we have it as in a course. So how can we storytelling to teach communication skills to students of technical institutions? That's my question, sir.
Sorry, I got a bit garbled there.
She's basically asking, how will storytelling help to teach communicative English to engineering students? Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's partly there's two parts to this. It's called tell your story and sell your story. And I think probably it's the communication side is pretty much about the sell your story. And that storytelling is such a powerful way to get your message across, and that people will listen to you when you tell a story. It's what I'm going to kind of will touch on as we go through this, because as human beings, we want to know what happens next, and then, you know, and we're drawn into that. So when you, as the teacher, start telling a story, your students are far more likely to listen. If you, you know, let's say you're now an entrepreneur and you get into the elevator, you're going to do your pitch to whichever Indian billionaire happens to be in the elevator with you. If you start giving him facts and figures about why your app is going to make a difference in the world, he will very quickly switch off because he has no emotional connection to it. If you tell a story about how your app has made a difference in someone's life, such as a grandmother, because you know that this man is very close to his grandmother, so stories about a grandmother is going to be something that he immediately has an emotional connection to. His ears will pick up. Oh, and your app has made a significant difference in her life? Oh, maybe it could make a significant difference in my grandmother's life. Okay, so we'll connect to stories. And that's why, because of that emotional connection, we're far more likely, one, to remember the message of the story, and two, when we hear a good story, we want to share it. We like telling it. Oh, I heard this really good story today. Oh, I heard a funny joke today, right? We want to share the story with other people. Yes? This is why do stories go viral on the internet? Because we see that story and we go like, wow, and we want to share it with lots of other people.
Really,
so that's
thank you.
Madam, now we can start. We can
start, sir? Okay, very good.
Yeah,
Meenakshi, start.
Okay,
Meenakshi. So mute everybody else now, and so that there's no disturbance. And Meenakshi, you can start.
Meenakshi,
we can't hear you, Meenakshi. You're muted. Meenakshi, you're muted.
Ma'am, hello. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yes, we can hear you.
Ma'am, should we wait for VC a few more minutes, or shall we start?
You can start. We have talked to his
Just start. Chaubet sir has permitted us to start, and we will stop in between whenever he comes in.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Yes, Meenakshi, you can start.
Yes, ma'am. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation that is to come. Good afternoon to one and all present here. On behalf of Department of Humanities, UIT RGPV, I, Dr. Meenakshi Bhadra, welcome all of you at the International Storytelling webinar, Tell Your Story, Sell Your Story, with Mr. Roger Jenkins. The webinar aims to various teaching strategies mobilized in employment communication. First of all, I would like to thank Professor S.C. Chaube sir for his presence here. And I would request Dr. Bhasha Shukla ma'am to welcome our guest, Dr. Professor Chaube sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my privilege and pleasure to extend a cheerful welcome to all of you in this international webinar on Tell Your Story, Sell Your Story. So a special and warm welcome to Chaube sir and Dr. Vinita Bhatnagar, Roger Jenkins, and all the members of the Department of English and students. Stories, they say, are highest form of communication. And as people remember, people will remember stories for ages. You tell them a story and it will be remembered always. And stories are an integrated part of Indian culture. We have Panchatantra, Hitopadesh, Kathasarit Sagar, and many more. We are a country of stories and storytellers. Folk tales, folklores are a part of our everyday life. Every statement that we make in our resume has a story behind it. But what is important is that we must know how to sell these stories. Now, we have Roger Jenkins, our master storyteller, who will teach us how to market our stories professionally. I hope this will be an enriching experience, a good learning experience for the teachers as well as the students. So I welcome you all for this. Thank you very much.
It is said, great stories happen to those who can tell them. With these words, I welcome our speaker, Mr. Roger Jenkins. And before we proceed to our session, I would like to give a brief introduction of sir.
Actually, would Chaube sir would like to say something? Would he like to say something? Yes, we invite Chaube sir first.
Yes, okay.
It's because of Chaube sir that we have this program. It's the TQIP program.
Yes,
nothing.
No.
Okay.
No, we have to have a few words.
Yes, that's for sure. All logistic.
Yes. I request Chaube sir to say a few words.
Okay, thank you very much. Expert of the day, Mr. Roger Jenkins, Dr. Bhasha Shukla, HOD Humanity Department, Dr. Vinita Bhatnagar, Professor, and Dr. Meenakshi, and all their enthusiastic team for organizing this program. This program, as you know, organized under Technical Education Quality Improvement Program. And in my own experience, while I am associated with TechU for more than 5 years, our students are taking a lot of interest in attending such programs which are directly related to the employability skills. The employability skills so far, we had an understanding that if the students know what is English, if he can understand English, then it means that okay, that he is a good in communications. But it's not so that he needs some additional skill where he can communicate. And every student, and that is the mandate of the university and the mandate of the TechU, that the students should get employed. And merely providing him a technical skill will not give a place in the corporate world. What the content we have taught them, they must be able to communicate to the people who are sitting in the interview. And particularly this time has given an opportunity to all our students to enter this kind of program where that this is so far in the classroom we are very much confined to our syllabus, but never go this type of programs which like tell the story and sell the story, or any other kind of programs organized by various departments and institutions. So this is beyond the syllabus which they are going through our students, and students has got a lot of connectivity nowadays. You can see that I do not know that any time could you believe that see Roger Jenkins will be with us. Or this time you can see that on virtual platform he is with us. So that could be a dream for us sometimes. But you know, we are very happy that you are on our platform. You are talking, and this a virtual platform, but definitely this to shift to virtual, it demands pace of metabolic learning. That is also important, along with kind of upscaling the quality and analytics. That is equally important. Students sitting here merely because you know that there is no face-to-face interaction with the teacher, and therefore students need to be very, very attentive, and students should be very, very interactive to the experts and all other people, jury people, to learn some things. And here the students should not have any kind of hesitation, because he is asking, but he can see that what he is asking, and anytime he can connect with the expert. Once he gets connected with the expert on this platform, which is not for 1 hour and half an hour. Once he gets connected, anytime he can bring to the expert or Madam Sharma or Madam Vinita Madam, and then immediately he can get connected with all experts. So that is a very fair opportunity for all our students, where they are coming, and this time students have got a lot of contents. Right from 9 o'clock, I know that even TechUp3 is organizing every day more than 25 programs. And students are participating. There is no what the students can learn these times, we could not imagine this. So on this TechUp3 platform, again, I wish to congratulate, I wish to give a best wishes to all my students, and congrats to organizers for organizing some beautiful program where the students can learn about this. And while telling the story, they can have a better understanding. And I wish to extend my thanks to Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Sunil Kumar, who has been always motivating and encouraging to conduct this type of programs. And he said that all departments should almost conduct. With all these deals, I request all the faculty members and the organizers, if they can conduct as many as programs, they can conduct under TechUp3. You are always welcome. So once again, I thank to all participants who are here and be here and listen carefully. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And before we proceed to our session, I would like to give a brief description of Sir. Sir Roger Jenkins is the founder, director of Federation of East Asian Storytellers and president of Storytelling Association Singapore. He has led and organized many creative and innovative storytelling workshops. He has been awarded with Friend of Deaf Award by Singapore Association of the Deaf, Singapore Literature Prize from the Belly of the Carp, and awarded as the best storyteller at the 6th Kanun International Storytelling Festival in Tabriz, Iran. The list of his achievement is yet another story for another time. I take great pleasure in inviting Roger Jenkins, sir, to begin the session.
Thanks very much, Meenakshi. That's very kind of you. And I love the fact you began by quoting Steve Jobs. That quotation about the storyteller is the most powerful person in the world today. Interesting, because everybody, I think, if you're a business student anyway, would have a Steve Jobs story, because he himself loved to share stories. And yet the other guy, what's his name? The one who runs Microsoft? Does anybody know any stories about Bill Gates? No, he's not a storyteller. But Steve Jobs has this huge legacy, largely because of his use of stories. And just before I get into it also, there was a question, and it was Vipian, I think, asked, how long is this session going to last? And I hope I can take my inspiration from, I think it's Birbal, isn't it? And he is riding with the king, and the king is complaining because it's a very long journey. And he says to his advisors, can anyone shorten the road? And Birbal says, oh, I can do that, sir. And begins to tell him stories. And very soon, for the king anyway, he says, oh, we've arrived already. Because, of course, by telling the stories, Birbal has made the time pass quickly. So taking that leap, I am going to begin with a story. And this story takes place in West Africa. So I think you've come here, you at least deserve to hear some stories, don't you? And there's the chief of the village. And one day he gathers together his tribal council, which I can see has 73 participants, members. These are the wise men and women of the tribe of Bhopal. And they are gathered there, you see. And he says, ladies and gentlemen, we have had a wonderful year. We've had a great harvest. So none of our people will go hungry in the coming year. We are at peace with our neighbors. We have had no disasters, no floods. This story obviously was before COVID-19. He said, therefore, we have much to celebrate. And I propose that we have a big celebration. And all the members of the council smiled and nodded their heads. The chief said, because I am the richest, my lands are the largest, I will pay for the musicians, for the dancers, and of course, the storyteller. Because in traditional African communities, the storyteller is a very important member of the community. I'm just going to spotlight this, if that's okay. Great. But, said the chief, I will not only provide for that, as my lands are the largest, I will pay for all the food at the celebration. And again, all the council members were very, very happy. But, said the chief, favorite storyteller's word, but, I want you, each and every single one of you here today, to provide a calabash of your finest wine. Do you know what is a calabash? No? It so happens I have actually brought one here with me, okay? It's just a seed pod or gourd. I actually picked this one up in Thailand. As you can see, it's quite large. And the wonderful thing about it is you just take off the top, okay? Clean out the inside, and you have a very strong, very light, and best of all, biodegradable container. Unlike all the plastic water bottles that you guys are using, yes, throw this away, and very soon afterwards, it will have disintegrated. So all the members of the council said, yes, sir, we will bring a calabash of our finest wine. But on the way home, the youngest member of the council was thinking to herself, oh, alamak, a calabash of my finest wine? Ooh, that's going to be very expensive. And she began to think, how could she get out of not bringing the wine? And suddenly she had an idea. She thought, I know, I will fill my calabash with water from my well. Because when we go to the chief's compound, there will be one big ceremonial pot, and we will all pour our wine into the pot. And no one will know if I bring water instead of wine. So that's what she did. On the day of the festival, she got up very early. She went to the well. She filled her calabash with water from the well. She bathed, put on her finest costume, and then, balancing the pot, she went down the street to the chief's compound. Sure enough, there was the big pot, and she poured her wine into the pot. Then she sat down with all the other council members. They listened to the drumming, they watched the dancer, they heard the storyteller. And finally, the chief ordered the servants to bring the food and the wine. And all the council members raised their glasses to toast the chief, and they drank. Not wine, but water. And why? Because each and every single member of the council had had the same idea, that no one will notice if I bring water instead of wine. And since that day, there has been a saying in Africa: if you wish to drink wine, you must bring wine also. Thank you very much. That's the story. And normally, if I was there with you, I would ask you what that story means to you. Okay. Normally, when I do that, I was in a school just before the whole COVID crisis began. And I told some teachers, I was in a teacher training there. And one of the teachers, a PE teacher, sports teacher, stuck his hand up and said, what that story says to me is, if you cheat, don't get caught. The teacher sat next to him said, no, what that story says to me is, if you cheat, you will get caught. And another teacher said, no, what that story says to me is, if you cheat, the person that you cheat is yourself. Because after all, they wanted wine, but they got nothing, just water, right? Somebody else said, great minds think alike. And I said, really? And somebody else said, perhaps it's fools seldom differ. The reason that I'm telling you that story now, okay, is because for me, apart from the obvious value of integrity and doing the right thing, for me, that story is about participation. If you want to get something from this webinar, if you want to get something from your studies, you need to participate. You need to bring something in order for you to get something from it. Please don't go at the end of this webinar, go back home or go out and say, oh, Dad, my teacher has just said that I have to drink wine, so can you please give me a bottle of wine? That is not the message of this story. Can I repeat that? Okay, I'm not trying to turn you into drunks and alcoholics by drinking wine. No, 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 no. It's a symbol. Okay, so I hope you enjoy that story and that perhaps you might remember it and want to share it. Speaking of sharing, I am actually going to share my screen now. Okay, and so let's go from the beginning. So, why do we use stories? What is it about a story? I happen to like very much this quote from the French film director, that sometimes reality is too complex and stories give it form. Yes, life is happening all the time, and the way that we use stories, okay, is that stories help us to make sense of what is happening around us. Otherwise, life is just too random and chaotic. As human beings, we love to create sense out of chaos, order out of chaos. We like to have the idea that things happen for a reason and that they have consequences, okay? And so stories help us to do that. That we see, yes, this happened because something else happened. And stories have another very important function. They help us to remember, because stories stick in our brains. Yes, they have that in the same way that a viral story, there's a stickiness to it and people hook onto it and they don't let go. Stories are integral to our DNA. Scientific research, and just take my word for it, scientific research shows that we think in stories. Our brains are hot-wired to go to story as a natural way. So this comes back to the question about teaching and why tell stories. that if we use PowerPoint, which has been around for, gosh, over 25 years, unfortunately, it only reaches 2 areas of the brain. Probably right now, 2 areas of your brain, assuming that you are actually paying attention to this. Can we mute that? Can we mute everybody else apart from me? Thank you.
Please mute yourself. Madhurima, can you mute everyone? There's a disturbance. Madhurima.
Hopefully it's people.
Roger, I think you're also the host, so maybe you could do that if you can just check.
Oh my goodness me! Now you're really challenging me to juggle 2 balls at once.
Because I don't know where she's.
Whoa! Yep.
Otherwise, we'll have a lot of disturbance.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. What you're responding to now is just those areas of the brain where you're seeing the picture and you're trying to make sense of what this strange old English guy is saying. However, when we tell stories, then many more areas of the brain are activated. As I talk about the food, as I talk about the wine or the dancing, those parts of the brain that have experienced that light up briefly. When we tell an adventure story, we feel the same sense of excitement. If I talk about standing on top of a cliff with the wind in our hair, then you are imagining that at the same way. And as a result, many more neural pathways are activated. And as a result, if I can just go back, then you're going to find that there's many more areas and much greater retention of the information. And this is why a story is so much more vivid than a PowerPoint presentation. So ironically, I am using one today, but I think what you'll remember is not the PowerPoints, it's the stories, okay? So specifically, I want to kind of put you in this situation. So you go for an interview and the person or the panel across the table, they say to you something like, so why do you want to be or how did you get interested in engineering, okay? Or what made you decide you wanted a career in pharmaceuticals? I know we've got somebody from pharmacy here, okay? And when they do that, that really is an invitation for you to tell them a story. If they say to you, so why do you want to be an engineer? And you say, oh, because I think engineering is very important and engineers make the world a better place and I think I can really contribute. Yeah, that is not a story and it doesn't say anything at all really about you. What they're looking for is what I would call your who I am story. Okay, and this is what I want to talk about now, and what is your who I am story, okay? And basically, in that 3 or 4 minutes that you've got to respond to that kind of question, you are going to try and answer the question, why am I the right person for this job? Or how do I earn the right to be trusted, basically, by you? What I'm saying is not just BS, yeah, that you would find me to be a valuable person in your team. But unlike the story that I started with, which is a traditional story, a folk tale, we all know the beginning and ending, the kind of traditional stories, once upon a time, okay, they lived happily ever after. The beginning and the ending of those stories are well established. But your story, and I'm talking about a true story, okay, not about something made up, a fantasy story. This is things that have happened to you, things that are happening to you. How do you shape that? How do you condense from the 18, 19, 20, 22 years of your life the important incident or incidents that you want to share now? What is it that you are going to share that is going to, in this case, earn trust or to establish your credibility? It requires you to select and to shape your story. And in order to do that, you need to keep asking yourself, what is my objective? In this case, as I said, earning trust and establishing your credibility. And that will tell you what you should include, but equally importantly, what you should leave out. So let's say when you get, together with friends, okay, can you remember the days when it was okay to go and hang out with friends and have a coffee at Starbucks or wherever, okay? And you sit down and you're talking about something that's happened. Well, this is social. There's no time limit. You can include whatever details that you want. But in this particular situation, you need to be very focused and think very carefully about where you begin and what you include. So my son, who's just started at Polytechnic, he's coming up for 18. And when he was younger, I used to make him write a journal when he went away on holiday, right? Which he hated doing, I have to say. But, so he would write, today we went on holiday. We went to the airport at 5 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, we got on the plane. They gave us peanuts. At 9 o'clock, we arrived in Bangkok. At 10 o'clock, I went to bed. At 2 o'clock, I woke up because there was a fire. And he stops right there because he's now written the 60 words or whatever it is that I'd asked him to write, Which of all that information is the interesting part? It's the last line, right? I woke up at 2 o'clock because there's a fire. We want to know what happened next. Obviously, he didn't get burned and he didn't die because he's right there writing the story. But he hasn't started in the right place. He's not exercising any discipline, control. He was only 7 years old, for heaven's sake, about where to begin the story. So this is your choice. It's your story, and you get to decide how you want to tell it, okay? So what is the difference between saying, I want to be an engineer because I think engineering is very important? That's a concept. That's a concept. It's very abstract, okay? A story, on the other hand, is a unique event. It's about one moment, because again, they're not going to give you half an hour in your interview to talk. About one character, you, okay? You are the hero of the story, and it's about one place and one thing that happened, okay? So a story is very specific. And from that, we may lead to the general, because in this story, for example, you show that you are a person who perseveres despite whatever odds in order to get the job done. And we can now apply that generally, you probably are the kind of guy who doesn't give up easily. Whereas when you say, yeah, I want to be an engineer because I think, the world could be more efficient, make more efficient use of our resources. We're now trying to think, well, how does that apply particularly? Okay. How do we know that what we're going to share is a story and not a concept? Okay. The big dead giveaway, the very obvious thing, is that a story often has what we call a time marker. What is a time marker? Here are some examples. Okay. Something that roots this particular story in a particular place at a particular time. And the moment you hear something like this, you know that the person is about to go into a story. Yeah, last Tuesday at work. Oh, yeah, this is going to be a very specific moment. So, your Who I Am story. And it could well be what we would think of as an origin story. Yeah. How did you get interested in this subject? Or when did you realize that this is where your strength lay? What was that moment when you said, oh, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life? Okay. So let me share with you, I just want to share a couple of true stories. All right. And the first one is about a girl named Kiran Vaishali Grover. She was 14. And And one day she went into her garden and she saw that by her papaya tree, around the base of the papaya tree, there were a lot of snail shells. The other trees in her garden, no. And she asked that fundamental W question, which is, why? Why are there snail shells here, but nowhere else? So she wondered, this was her hypothesis, that maybe there was something in the papaya that was hostile to snails. And sure enough, there is. It's an enzyme called papain. And those of you who cook may know, if you've got any meat tenderizer, in order to tenderize your mutton, for example, if you look at your meat tenderizer, you will see on the label that papain is a key ingredient. It basically breaks down the long molecule chains in the meat and makes it much more digestible. Well, if it can do that for a piece of old mutton, just imagine what it does to a snail, which is already pretty squishy, right? So she thought maybe I could use this papaya juice in order to control the snails. And she found that, yes, it worked. It not only kills them faster, so it's more humane, it's a lot cheaper than buying chemicals. And of course, unlike chemicals, it's totally natural. So it's better for the environment. So she submitted that in a competition and won $1,500 US, which isn't bad, is it, when you're only 14 years old? Yeah, 1,500 US, I could do with that, yeah, after COVID, for sure. But that's not the end of the story. She happens to live in Miami, and a lot of people have boats. And if you keep a boat in the water, after a while, it starts getting these barnacles. You can imagine, as engineers, you will know that the efficiency of this propeller must be greatly compromised by all this stuff growing on the blades. And Vaishali thought to herself, but aren't barnacles just like an underwater snail? So she tried her papaya juice, and sure enough, it reduces the barnacles. Yeah, they die, they drop off. Now, the usual way of getting rid of barnacles is you have to take the boat out of the water, you scrape them off, and then you paint this stuff, which is called anti-fouling paint. And it is highly toxic. Highly toxic. It's got heavy metals inside it, okay? And of course, over time, it gets scraped off, sinks down to the bottom of the ocean, and then what eats it? The little fish. Who eats the little fish? The big fish. And who eats the bigger fish? We do. Well, the US Navy heard about what she was doing, and they gave her a lot of money to go commercial. And I'm pleased to say that now Vaishali's papaya-based anti-fouling paint is being used on ships all around the world. This is a kid who went out in her garden one day and said, why? This is her origin story, and I'm sure if she turned up on your doorstep and said that she wanted to work in your company, you would be very keen to employ her, okay? In Africa, this is Nairobi, the capital of Kenya, and right on the outskirts of the city is a big game park. And there are no fences to this game park. The animals roam free. And wherever you've got a zebra and cattle, you will also have lions. And unfortunately, lions do what lions do. They come and kill the cattle, which isn't very nice for the villagers, makes them rather unhappy. And so they go out and they kill the lions. So this is not a good thing, either for villagers or for the future of the lion population in Kenya. And there's a boy, his name's Richard Tereri, and he was also younger, he was only 12 years old. And it's the custom for the boys in his community to have to look after the cattle when they get to the age of 9 or 10. So instead of being at home doing his homework, he's got to be out making sure that the lions don't come and take the cattle. What a great job in the evening, yeah. So first of all, he thought, well, I'll light a fire because lions are scared of fire. But that wasn't good because, of course, as the flames are going up and down, the lions can see the cattle through the flames, so they know the cattle are there. So then he thought, oh, I know, I'll get a torch and I'll put some lamps up. That'll be good, and that'll scare the lions away. Well, yeah, but lions aren't stupid. And they see that the torch isn't moving. And so they come back. So now Richard is thinking, what can I do? How can I make the lights move? This could be an engineering problem, couldn't it? Yes? And so his plan, I don't know if when you're trying to solve a problem, is this the kind of sketch that you produce? Okay. So he's got his power supply, he's got his torches on the fence, he's got his cows inside the fence, presumably the lions are somewhere over here. And he's got this. What is the switch? You know, on a car, how your indicator lights go on, off, on, off, on, off. And there's a little bimetal strip inside that heats up, cools down, heats up, cools down. Yeah. So that's all it is. And it makes the lights go on, off, on, off, on, off. And guess what? It fools the lions and they go away because they think somebody's walking up and down. It worked for him. It worked for all the homes in his village. The word spread, and now it's been rolled out throughout Kenya, and I gather other parts of Africa. And it got him into a boy from the poorest kind of home in Kenya into now the most prestigious boys' school in Kenya. Again, this is somebody who's found a problem and tried to find a solution to the problem. And when he tells that story, of course, you're going to say, here's somebody who can work in the real world. So you may not have such an exciting moment when you switched on, okay, and discovered your love or your aptitude for this, okay? But think about the incidents from your life. This may be, it's an attitude, it's a mindset. So Frank Lloyd Wright, for example, a leading architect, one of the most famous architects in America of the last century, of the late 20th century. And he shares a story. And when he was a kid, and it was wintertime, and he'd gone out with his uncle. And his uncle, it had been snowing, so there was snow on the fields. And they just crossed a big field, and they got to the gate. And the uncle stops the boy, Frank Lloyd Wright, and he says, look back. And there, across the field, are two sets of tracks. And the uncle's tracks go straight across the field from one gate to the next. But young Frank's coming over here to the fence, and then across to the pond, yeah, and then to the burnt out tree, and then somewhere else. And they kind of zigzag and meander and finally get to the gate. And the uncle wanted to say, did you see that? I've gone straight across. That's the kind of person I am. I'm getting ahead. You need to stay focused, young man, otherwise you'll waste your time. And Frank Lloyd Wright says, at that moment, he realized that he never ever wanted to be like his uncle, and that he would always be pursuing his interest, and that what caught his eye, what caught his attention, this is what he'd want to explore. It's a very telling story about Frank Lloyd Wright's mindset. I wonder, what kind of person are you? Are you the kind of person and you're just blinkered, you don't see anything, you're just focused, focused, focused? Or are you the kind of person who, oh, and that might be interesting, and maybe I can find something over here that might help me to solve the problem that is over there? What's your attitude? And if you put it in a story, you distill it to something that very immediately, very concrete, we can understand. Whereas if you say, oh, well, I'm a bit of a, lateral thinker. Huh? Excuse me? Very simple story from Japan. This was in the wake of a big tsunami, earthquake and tsunami, that had caused a lot of devastation. And an American news crew flew over to Japan in order to, make a report, camera crew, soundmen and so on. And they found there was a woman who had set up a little store beside the road, and she was selling essentials, because this is what people needed, oil and matches and the everyday little things that you need, toilet paper, I don't know, the basic things that you need when you've lost everything. And the camera crew were really surprised because she was selling them without any markup for exactly the same price that you might find in a store anywhere else in Japan. When in the wake of, you know, the disaster, you would expect, because of the law of supply and demand, she could have charged any price she liked. And they asked her why. And that was the turn of the Japanese woman to be surprised. And she said, but why would I want to profit from somebody else's suffering? That's a mindset. Yeah, I have plenty of stories about people who are only to, this is the chance, isn't it? If you're the only person who's got what people want to buy, you can charge whatever you like for it. Okay, forget about ethics. You're over there, you've got, and you can make money. But that's not her mindset. Why should I profit from somebody else's suffering? So in a story, you can very quickly, very concisely illustrate what's important to you, the way that you work, what your values are, how you will approach the way you make your contribution to this company. So you think about the times when you've had to make a tough choice, because when you have to make a tough choice, that's when your values come into play. And particularly if it's a time when, because of this choice, this led to a change, a transformation, that you are perhaps a different person because of the way of the choice you made. If you're familiar with the poem, The Road Not Taken, I took the road less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Because when we have to make a choice, what's important? Okay, oh, this job's offering more money. I want that one. Okay. This job, no, not so much money. I have a very good friend in Kolkata. I was there last year for a storytelling festival. And her husband is a doctor, a pediatrician working at the hospital. And he works insanely long hours for what I gather is very little money. And I asked him, you know, why haven't you quit government service and gone into private? Because you could make a lot more money and it would probably be a lot less stressful. And he said, well, I came from a very poor family. I got scholarships to go and do this, okay, to get my training to become a doctor. And I feel I need to pay back. So he's made a choice. And that choice says a lot about who he is as a human being, okay? So you're looking for these kinds of specific moments in your life where the way that you've behaved or what you've done will reveal something about who you really are. It might be that you want to share a story about a mentor or a role model. The mere fact that you are willing to acknowledge that you have got where you are because of somebody else, that in itself says a lot about you. When I first came to Singapore, I was blessed. I had a guy who was the head of year and who taught me a lot. And I always remember one of the stories that he told me. And there's a guy walking along the street and he sees there are 3 men, okay, bricklayers. So the man goes up to the first man and he says, what are you doing? And the man looks up at him and says, what does it look like? I'm laying bricks. Oh. So he walks a bit further along and he says to the second man, what are you doing? And the man says, I'm building a wall and it's going to go from there to there and it's going to be 8 feet high. Oh. He walks along to the last man and says, what are you doing? And he said, this is going to be the gateway to a new temple. The temple will be the centerpiece of this community. Many people will come here for the important moments in their lives, with their children, for their weddings. So they'll probably want to stand outside this very gate and maybe take a selfie. So who knows, they'll be standing right in front of my wall. So I better make it the best wall that I can. 3 very different attitudes towards the work that they're doing. All of them are building a wall. They're building the same wall. But the first man is just saying, I'm laying bricks. The second man, yeah, I'm building a wall, but yeah, a bit like Trump, doesn't really know why, yeah, he's building a wall. Just sounds like a good idea, or he's been told he needs to have a wall. Only the third man has the vision, and he's seeing what I'm part of, something, yes, much larger and much grander, and that's giving him that sense of purpose. There's another man, one of my favorite stories about building. I mean, I don't have many stories about engineers, okay, but so he's a builder, okay, and he's, like me, he's getting on, but you know, he's not a storyteller, so he's thinking about retiring. Storytellers don't retire. We just go on and on and on and on and on. And he goes to his boss and he says, boss, you know, I'd like to spend more time with my grandkids. I'd like to travel, take the wife. We talked about a cruise, so I want to retire. And his boss is like, what? Oh no, really? Yeah. And the boss says, oh, okay. Okay, he says, listen, you've been with me a long time, but please, Joe, he says, please, will you do me a favor and build me one more house? I've got a very special client, and I really want to, you know, build his house for him. And Joe's like, please. And Joe says, okay. And finally, he agrees to build the house. But you know, his heart isn't in it. Yeah. I mean, when he goes and he measures and he calculates how many bricks he needs, he doesn't really do a good job. So he doesn't buy enough bricks. And of course, he runs out. So when he goes back to the supplier, they don't have more of the same brick. He has to get different bricks. Same with the tiles, you know, there's a mix of the patterns. And then when he makes the door, he doesn't put the frame in exactly vertical, it's slightly off. So when he tries to open the door, it sticks, jams, and he has to shave a bit off the bottom. So now there's a little gap, the wind comes, I mean, oh dear me. It's not a good way to end his career. But finally, it's done. It's done. And he calls his boss and he says, boss, come. The house is finished. You can you know, inspect it and take it. And a little while later, the boss pulls up, gets out of his car, and he walks up to the front door, and Joe opens the door. But the boss doesn't go in. He turns to Joe and he says, here, Joe, and he gives him the keys. And Joe says, why are you giving me the keys? And the boss says, because this is my gift to you. It's my way to say thank you. This house is your house. And Joe's like, huh? Why didn't you tell me that before? I mean, if I'd known it was my house, yeah? Think how much time, how much care, how much love he would have invested in that house. Every day, you are building your house. Every lesson that you go to, every assignment that you do, if you like, is another brick in the house that is building your future. What kind of house are you going to have when you graduate? Yeah? Are you thinking, yeah, every day is important? It comes back to my very first story, doesn't it? Participation. Yeah? Are you really giving your best every single time to try and make sure that your future has got as many opportunities that whatever that you possibly can? Or are you just kind of, yeah, okay, make do, you know, not really important, is it? Okay. So thinking about the kind of story that you might share, a story that says something about you and your mindset. You're not focusing on the achievement, because if you just say, oh, I came up with this and I developed this fabulous website, yeah, that's really just you boasting about what a wonderful, yeah. What you want the story to show is something about what makes you unique. Yes, what is special about you, what is the attitude. So in that case, perhaps it's possibly worthwhile thinking about a tale of teamwork. I'm sure that your teachers from time to time ask you to do group assignments. Yes, is that right, Meenakshi? I'm kind of looking here. Do I see a nodding head? Yes, that they have to do group work. Yes, group projects. You don't do everything on your own. I was reading a story on the BBC just about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, that somebody's done research, Harvard or somewhere, and they compare people who only work by themselves as opposed to those who like to work in teams. And they found that in the first year, yes, the people who only think of themselves and work only for themselves often go further and farther ahead. But over the second, the third, and the fourth year of their studies, the people who work in teams not only catch up, but soon far exceed them, because they're open to more ideas and getting, yes, that support from their teams, from their network. That's why we say networking can be so useful and important. So teamwork stories tend to, we'll be sharing this PowerPoint afterwards. Is that right, Vanita? So they can, if they want to have that, so they don't have to write this down. So they tend to, tales of teamwork tend to break down into two types. The first is when you have a group of people with different strengths come together, okay, to solve a problem. Or it may be that you know, suddenly the head of department says, oh, I want you to organize this. And you go, huh? Me, Mum? Yes. And I want you to do it by the end of the month. Huh? And you think, how can you possibly get that done? But then people rally around and they bring you that unexpected success because they each bring their own skills. As an example of this first one, when a group of people with different strengths come together, I would think of like Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, but I would imagine possibly, you know, you go to the Mahabharata and you've got your huge families there working together, right? NASA story, very nice, very simple little story. Supposedly a true story. And an American president, I would imagine it's Johnson, way back in the very early days of the space program. And he went to Houston, which was the headquarters of NASA. And when he's making his visit, right, he has to go to the toilet unexpectedly. And so he goes into the men's restroom. And as he's standing there at the urinal, he has a toilet flush, and out from the cubicle comes an African-American dressed in white overalls. And he's a bit surprised by to see the president of the United States standing right there doing his business. And the president says, oh, hello, do you enjoy working here? And the man says, yes, Mr. President, I do. He said, I am so proud that I'm helping to put a man on the moon. And the president looks at him and says, good for you. He said, and what is it that you actually do here at NASA? And the man said, oh, I clean the toilets in this block of the building. He's a toilet cleaner. And yet, he's seeing himself as part of the team. Because he knows that if the toilets aren't clean, the chances people are going to get sick, they're not going to be happy, whatever, it's going to not mean that they can do what they're being paid to do as well as they might. Everybody is part of a team, even the toilet cleaner. Love that story. Okay. And when you tell a tale of teamwork, okay, it's not because you want to say, yeah, you know, I led the team, I was so good, but by spreading the credit and saying that other people helped you achieve, you do several things. One, you downplay in your own role, which surprisingly actually raises your status. Because only very confident people will say that they need other people. When did Donald Trump ever acknowledge that other people were good? He's the best at everything. He never, ever shares the credit. That tells you a lot about the man, okay? When you say, I could only have done it because of these other people, then other people think, wow, I'm happy to help him because I know that he won't steal all the credit for himself, okay? But that he's willing to share it. And we will all feel good about it because it's not about him or her, it's about the team. It's about finding a solution. So again, think of a time if you've had a team project and what it is that you brought to that team, okay? And how together you managed to succeed. Because at the very least, you're saying, I'm a team player. yeah, and I will work with your guys and not be just about, this is me, I'm a prima donna, you must work with me. And the last one, which might be the strangest, okay, is to talk about a time when you messed up big time. Huh? You mean I'm going to say that I'm not perfect, that I make mistakes? Yes, okay. And these are the kind of, maybe a time when, so we go back to when you had a choice. Remember I asked you to think about a time when you made a choice and where you made a bad choice, okay? And why would you do that, all right? Because in doing that, you're going to say, I learned a lesson. So there's a story about a young man, and he's very excited. He's got a job working for a lawyer, okay, big law firm. And at the end of the week, oh my goodness me, he makes a mistake. Not quite as bad as, I don't know if you read the story, the latest story of a clerical error in America. Citibank have just sent 900 million US dollars to the wrong people. And the wrong people, they're entitled to the money, but the money should never have been sent. Can you imagine? That is one big mistake. The person who put that, send 900 million US dollars. So this kid, it wasn't 900 million, but it was a lot of money, okay? And because of that, the company, the law firm, was going to lose out. The contract needed to be signed by such and such a date, such and such a time, 5 o'clock, and of course he sent it too late. Cost the company big money. And so he thought, oh no, this is terrible, okay? And so he went back, and on Friday afternoon, he's packing up his desk, putting all his belongings into a box because he knows he's going to get fired. And he's walking out with the box when the boss sees him and he says, what are you doing? And the young man says, well, I'm leaving because I think you're going to fire me because I made such a big mistake. And the boss looks at him and he said, are you crazy? He said, I have just spent 50,000 teaching you a very important lesson. You will never ever make that mistake again, will you? You will always make sure that you get your work handed in on time. So now the least you could do is go back to your desk and work for me and earn back that 50,000 that I just spent teaching you not to make that mistake. All right? So bad experience doesn't necessarily mean that you can't learn from it. All right? So these kind of stories, a time when you've messed up, the fact that you are honest enough to admit to having made a mistake, that also speaks a lot about you. But if you are going to tell that story, do tell it with a positive tone. You don't want to be like suggesting that you're a victim, you know, oh, yeah, again, I messed up, and oh, I can't go. Oh. No, you need to be positive and say, yes, I made a mistake, but I've learned from it, and I'm a much better person as a result, okay? And that now the lesson that I've learned is something that's really important to me. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap this up here because I've been really thinking about the tell the story, but I want to talk about how you might sell your story. And this is really kind of some storyteller stuff that is really kind of important. The first is, you'll notice, it's eye contact. This is why I gave up my career in theatre, because what I love about storytelling is that all the time I'm looking at you, okay? I'm going to actually let me end the share because I can do this. I don't need this. So you can actually see my eyes, okay? So yeah, that's what I love about storytelling. It's all about contact, yeah? And unlike a lot of people when they get online and I'm doing this, no, I'm not looking at the screen, I'm looking at the camera because I want to make eye contact with you. And what kills me about this is that I'm not there in the same space. What I love about when I'm telling a story is that unlike when you act and you're on a stage and you're in spotlights and the audience is in the dark, when you tell a story, you're in the same light. We share the same space. We're together. And that's, yeah, it's why storytelling is so personal and you make this connection, okay? So that's the first thing, eye contact, eye contact. Use your natural voice. Don't worry about that. So many times I've had here in Singapore people who are using English as their second language. But when people are listening to a story, they are not judging you. Maybe, yes, if you're applying to be a radio broadcaster or something, or on TV, then your voice is very important. Okay, the sound, maybe. All right. But when normally, yes, when you are sharing a story, people are listening to the story. They are not going to be judging your English. And the more you are in the way that you tell the story, that's what people will listen to. That's what people will connect with. Okay. So don't try and affect. We were talking about how earlier on, before most of you joined in, how I'd done some work with the Bhopal Literati Society with some of their teenagers, and I gave a couple of them a hard time because they had really hideous fake American accents, particularly when they wanted to act. And I said, no, please, be yourselves, be yourselves. The best advice I ever got from a mentor, it was the very first storytelling workshop I ever attended, a guy called Max Tell from Canada. And he said, speak from the bottom of your heart and the top of your head. What does that mean? The bottom of your heart, be sincere. Be sincere, okay? Don't give me any BS, just be sincere. And from the top of your head means to be spontaneous. Doesn't mean you have to make it up as you go along, but you don't learn it word for word. You know what you want to say and trust that the words will come out of your mouth. As I say, it's important that you know what you want to say, and that's why somebody asked earlier, should I write it down before you tell your story? Great, but do not write it like a script, because the way that you write your English and the way that you speak your English are two completely different languages. Yeah, the way that we structure the words that we use are very different. Top of your head, bottom of your heart. Be specific. Look for those specific details. The snow, the tracks going through there, okay? So that you've got that. Think about the feelings. What were you feeling at that particular moment when the teacher said to you, I want you to do this, you are going to be responsible, the chancellor of the university is going to be there, so it had better go right. What were your feelings? And then this happened, that your supplier who was going to provide the laughing gas for the party, and they said they couldn't do it. How did you feel then? You know, get your emotions into the story so that we can connect with that and identify, oh yeah, if that, I would know exactly. If someone pointed the big finger at me, I would feel exactly that. I've had that feeling, you know? Do not neglect the emotions. This way, you are going to make your story come alive. Think about humor. I say that, I'm biased. I guess it's one of my, I like to think I'm quite a humorous person. It's not that I don't think I've told a joke today, but I hope you found some of what I've done entertaining. Either by my vocal expression, my facial expression. Yeah. Humor is a point of view. If you take something, what happens, and you see the positive side in it, that's unexpected. So when I was with these kids yesterday, and I was asking them about how the COVID-19 had affected their learning. And I was very surprised when two of them actually gave me some positive things. She said, well, my badminton's play is a lot better now. Because of course, badminton, you can play because you are separated by a net and you are never less than a meter apart. You're always very distant. And so that's the one game she plays every recess. She said, I actually got quite good at badminton now. I'm like, oh, okay, right? So that was something that was positive that had come from her, okay? And the last one that I want to share, which is two things. That when you're telling your story, is try to find a way to make your story connect with your audience's story. So if you can find out what is the company, what do they do, what is their motto? Somebody asked me, what a great question, which I completely fluffed, was what is the motto for this webinar? I'm going to think of that for the next time that I do this. Thank you very much, great question. But what is their motto? And how do you feel that your story connects with their story? last year I did a workshop with the frontline staff for a luxury watch seller, so Rolex and all that kind of stuff. So the cheapest watch in that shop is 10,000 Singapore dollars. Multiply that by 50, okay, to get rupees. I mean, like, whoa! You're looking at a guy who wears a $50 watch. I'm not a, watches mean nothing to me. I'm not into watches. So I'm like, wow. And so all these guys knew the Rolex story, and I got them to role play. And I said, okay, imagine that I'm a customer and I come in. And they were like, you know, so what kind of watch do you want? And I said, no. I said, find out what is my story. Oh, okay. Yes, sir. What are you looking for? And then I would play a character and I say, well, my son has just graduated from the Bhopal College and he's got a scholarship and he's going to London, yeah, to study an advanced engineering course. And they go, oh, in which case you want a book. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. Connect to my story. And they're like, huh? And I said, well, so my son is going to UK. So why not offer me a watch that has like dual time? And then you could say something like, so your son will always know when it's a good time to call you because he'll have both UK time and India time. So this is a selling point for the watch, that you can have two different times on it, but you're connecting it to my story. The customer's story is that this is a gift for my son who's going to be studying overseas. So find a way to try and connect your skill or what it is to the company, to their story. And that might be either because of their motto, their vision statement, okay, their mission statement, whatever. That there is a connection. And it shows that you've got an interest, that you haven't just, okay, I'm going to send off 200 applications for a job. And let's see, oh, today's Tuesday, so this must be, oh, okay, it's Microsoft. Yeah, boom, no. All right. So I hope that has given you lots of ideas about how you might shape your story. And I don't know if there are some any questions that have been highlighted as we're going through. I see that the chat, oh my goodness, is up to 99, so I'm not going to try and scroll through those. But I don't know if, Meenakshi, if you've been picking up any questions?
Yes, sir, I'm looking for it.
Okay, very good. I have one little story that I'm going to finish with, but I thought I could keep that right to the end because it's a really good little story. And if I don't know if any of the other teachers who've been there want to ask a question also about using stories. I hope you've seen how the story element has, yeah. What do you remember about the session? It'll be the stories, the builders, yeah. The papaya and the snails. Oh, the good thing about that, about Richard's invention, is that it doesn't just stop lions as well. It stops elephants. That they're using it in all sorts of different communities. It's just so effective. It's so simple. And of course, the farmers are grateful because the wildlife doesn't kill their crops, their cattle, and trample their crops. And of course, the wildlife conservationists are thrilled because the people aren't killing the wild animals. So that's great. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah. What about using informal language while telling stories? Of course, not anything hurting, and using tongue twisters while telling stories.
Yeah. Again, that's again within. You've got to remember that within, if it's in a business context, and if you were going for an interview, then you again try and take the tone from your interviewer. And there's no point, if they're very formal, for you being like, yo man, and kind of like, yeah, okay, yeah, then probably they're going to think, no, he's not going to fit within our corporate culture, okay? Where in terms of an educational context, informal language, particularly if it's dialogue, if a character is in the story, then you could do whatever you like because this is the character. So it could well be speaking in the mother tongue, for example. That would be totally appropriate for a particular character. Here in Singapore, we have Singlish, which the government tends to frown upon, really. They don't want to encourage that, and schools generally. But I say, look, if I'm telling a story and I can make one of the characters, speak with more of a Singlish accent or the choice of vocabulary, of course, kids connect with that. They relate. That's why you would do it. The tongue twisters, certainly, but again, not so much in these kind of real life personal stories. It might be, yes, if you were sharing a traditional story, might well be the kind of thing that Tenali Raman or Birbal would be happy to use, there. And it's a good way to begin a story, perhaps to catch the audience's attention, get them to try and say it, okay? The wristwatch strap shops, shut. Just try saying that 3 times. The wristwatch strap shops shut, yeah? Or this one, very tricky, plain bun, plum bun. Just say that several times and see what comes up, okay? But not when ladies are present. Yep. Next. Oh, you got confused whether we should be thankful. Yes, absolutely. Don't be confused about it. Be thankful to people who help you. Gratitude is a hugely underrated value. But what it does is if you're in a team and then, and we're successful, and you get up and say, yes, we won, okay? I happen to be a Liverpool supporter. So if Jurgen Klopp, the manager, got up and said, well, we won because I'm the manager and I did a great job, and how do you think the rest of the team are going to feel, okay? If the forwards say, oh, we won because we scored more goals, how do the defenders feel? Well, excuse me, it was because we stopped the other team from scoring goals. That's why we won, okay? And how about the guy who keeps the people fit, okay? And does the massage and the medical training and all this kind of stuff. They all play a very important part. And so the more that you acknowledge those people and say, it's not about me, okay, but I'm only was good because of all these other people. And people think, we like working for him because he shares the credit, he shares the glory, and we can all feel good about that. A couple of years ago, I did a workshop. I was in Chennai for a storytelling festival, and a big oil company, is it Standard Oil? I don't know what the Indian company was. And I did a workshop with their staff. And that was one of the things I asked them to share, was a story about teamwork. And the story that got everybody was there'd been a huge fire in their HQ. Fortunately, the sprinklers had worked and had put out the fire before too much structural damage had been done to the building. But of course, the water had ruined computers. It had ruined papers and filing systems and all that. And this was the headquarters. I mean, the rest of the organization was depending. And the story of teamwork was that everybody came in, even the kind of people, and you know who they are, I'm sure you have them in the university, who would never ever be seen to actually pick up a brush, a broom, tidy up, pick up, garbage off the floor. Everybody came in over the weekend kind of thing, and got the place back up and running, not at full strength, but actually being able to operate within a remarkably short space of time. And it was remarkable that everybody came in, from the most senior person there, rolled up his sleeves and was actually helping alongside the most junior. And so, and that was the story. It wasn't about how I led my team and we did all this, but it was how collectively, and of course that they'd become a very strong unit as a result because of this shared experience. So appreciate team members. You can never be thankful enough. And the payoff will be when you've got the next problem and you go and ask them for help, they'll say, sure, how can I help? What can I do? Whereas if you don't don't help them, if you don't acknowledge them, the next time they go and help, you'll say, why? Why should I help you? Get lost, go away, serve you right.
As a storyteller, I just wanted to know, which is your favorite story that connects with the audience all over the world?
It's a nice question, but it's a false question, because it depends on the audience. So this is one of the first things that I guess I learned, was that I could tell the same story to different audiences, and I would tell it in different ways. I would tell it, if it was younger children, I might use puppets or be more visual. If it was a more formal situation, like with adults, I would use different language, for example. I might change the message of the story that I want people to take. So yes, I do have a couple of stories. There's a story called The Wooden Sword, which comes from Iran. And I started telling that story immediately after 9/11, because at the time I thought the story came from Afghanistan, and the war against the Taliban in Afghanistan was about to begin. And I wanted to say, because it's a story from that part of the world, the main character is a Muslim and he's a man of peace. And I wanted to say through that story, yeah, what the Taliban did is terrible, but don't just paint all Muslims, all Afghanistanians, if that's the right word, with the same brush. And it's a very powerful story. It's a great story. So that's one. And that's when Meenakshi, you kindly mentioned that I won the Best Storyteller award. That was the story that I told. And there, because most of my audience was half were English speaking and half were Farsi speaking, so I had an interpreter, and I had to make that much more visual. And I used some sign language in my storytelling, because there are some refrains in the story that come back again and again and again. And that way, the first time I used the sign language, and my interpreter interpreted it from English into that. The second time he did it, but the third time I said, shut up. And they saw the sign and they knew then what the English were, and they could join in. So it's a question there of adapting the way that you tell the story. And this is another reason why I said, don't learn the story word for word, because you may find that the person you're telling it to, I'll give you 2 minutes to tell me the story. But this is a 4-minute story. What do I do? I can't do this in order to try and get through the story 4 minutes and 2 minutes, because I don't understand what I'm saying. I've got to think, what am I going to cut? How can I do this and get the essentials of that 4-minute story into 2 minutes? And so it becomes, so don't learn it word for word. You're not an actor. That's the difference. Acting Shakespeare, you must learn it word for word. Tell a story? No. Know the story off the top of your head, find the words. Okay, we're coming up to Vipin will be saying, hey, you said an hour and look at the time. You've gone at 10 minutes over because I started at 22.
Yes, there are questions coming in now, but I think what we'll do is, Roger, we'll bring you back for another session, I think. And we'll get the questions from people. Yeah. So Meenakshi.
Can I finish with a story?
Sure.
Can I finish with a story? Because it's a really nice story. Okay, yeah. So this is a story about a girl, okay? And I'm going to call her Vanita, okay, just for today. And she was only about 6 years old, you see. So this was like last year, Vanita, a couple of years ago. And because of COVID, of course, she's stuck at home and she's driving her mum absolutely crazy, right? 6 years old, she's too young for home-based learning. So the mother says, I know, do you want to play a game like a treasure hunt? And the girl says, okay. And the mother says, okay, I want you to find something that is red and round, has no windows and doors, and has a star inside. And Vanita's like, okay. And she starts running around, okay? And she goes to her room and she finds a red ball. And she thinks, wow, it's red, it's round, it's got no windows and doors, but there's no star in a red ball. She throws it away. She's going through all her, looking at dolls, no, nothing. She goes to her brother's room. Oh, she finds a fire engine. Wow, that's red. Oh, but it's not round and it's got and she's just turning the house upside down, and her mother's thinking, oh, was this a good idea or not? Okay. So then she goes downstairs. She says, "Where's Grandpa?" Because Grandpa knows everything, right? You know, when you're old like me, trust me, you know everything. So Mum says, "Oh, he's downstairs. Yeah, he's playing chess. Okay, socially distanced chess. Okay." So she goes downstairs. She says, "Grandpa, what's red, round, got no windows and doors, and it's got a star inside?" And Grandpa goes, and he doesn't know. I mean, Vanita was absolutely like, "What? I thought you knew everything." And he could see that Vanita's really, you know, dismayed, shocked. It's a bit like finding out there's no such thing as Father Christmas. Oh, sorry, did I give something away there? I can see there's a girl there going, "What? No Father Christmas?" He said, "Look," and he takes out of his, he's got like, you know, 5 rupees in his pocket. He says, "Look, why don't you go along to the mama shop there and get something, buy some sweets." I know it's not a healthy thing to do, but, you know, Grandpa's allowed to do that. So she goes along to the shop, and when she gets there, she sees there's a woman. She's got a baby on her hip, you see, and she's picking some fruit. And when she does that, one of the fruit falls off and rolls along the floor. So Vanita, being a good little girl, she bends down, picks it up, and gives it to the woman. She says, "Oh, thank you very much. Are you going to get some fruit?" And Vanita thinks, "Oh yeah, why not?" And so she buys an apple. Okay, 5 rupees, it's enough. She's got the apple. So she comes back home, but she's feeling a bit sad because she still hasn't got the answer to the treasure hunt. And she came out of the house so fast that, of course, she didn't bring a key. She's only 6. So she knocks on the door. And when the mum opens the door, she says, "Oh, Vanita, you clever girl. You solved the problem." And Vanita goes, "Did I?" "Yeah, look, you got it." And she goes, "Really?" And the mum says, "Yeah, look, it's red, it's round, it's got no windows and doors." And Vanita said, "Yeah, but there's no star in an apple." And the mum says, "Really? Come on." And she brought her inside the house, okay, and she cut the apple. But she didn't cut the apple. She cut the apple like this. And I'm sorry that you can't see it on my camera. Here we go. I'm just cutting. Well, it's a big apple. Big apple. There we go. Oh, yes. Because there, can you see the star in my apple? There's the star in the apple. Now, why am I telling you this story? Because, you see, I believe that there's a star in every single one of you. And telling your story is about letting that star shine. Now, please, don't go to your friend and take a knife and try and cut them open to find the star inside of them. I'd hate that. You know, I can see the headlines in the Bhopal newspaper tomorrow. Yeah, Singaporean encourages mass murder in Bhopal College. Please, no. Why do we find the star? Normally, when we cut an apple, we always cut it top to bottom, don't we? We always look at the apple this way. But I'm asking you to look at the apple this way. And in the same way, you always see your teachers, yeah? You always see Basha there, and you look at her and you see, oh yes, yeah, she's the head of department. We always look at them in a particular way. But maybe if we look at somebody in a different way, then we might see what's special about them and see the star that is inside them. So look at your classmates, the people around you, and perhaps instead of always saying, oh yeah, he's always the clown or whatever it is, maybe just try and see him from a different point of view, and maybe you'll see the star in them. And do the same for yourself, because perhaps you have a way of looking at yourself and the story that you tell yourself, oh yeah, you know, I'm never going to be a success, I'm never going to get an A, yeah, whatever, you know, she's always going to be better than me. You need to look at yourself.
Somebody has to mute themselves. Yeah.
And see the star inside yourself. And the nice thing, of course, about telling that kind of story is that when you've finished, you can I'm done.
Okay.
Very much.
Meenakshi, I think whoever Vipin is good at finding out. I think who's unmute. Meenakshi, let's end then. Yes.
Meenakshi, you have to unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, sir, for the wonderful stories full of moral ideas and logics. They were really interesting. And once again, I thanks a lot. As we have reached the end of our session, I would request Dr. Bhatnagar ma'am to render vote of thanks.
Yes, I'll quickly give the vote of thanks because people are asking for the feedback link. But before that, I want to thank Roger Jenkins for, I knew, there's somebody still not muted, but I guess we'll have to deal with it. So I knew that he would be very patient, and he was very patient, not only with you, but with me, because initially I kept harassing him and saying, send the PPT and do this and do that. And he's extremely patient, extremely generous and giving, and is willing to come back for you anytime you want him, whether in your institutions or back in ours. We will invite him back. So I want to thank Roger for that very nice session on telling your story and selling your story. Thanks also to the TCAP team, Professor Chaube, and then of course all the little girls and all the people who've been helping out, and I've been asking them. So, and thank you to all the participants. Now the one question everybody's been going on and on asking, the feedback link. So listen carefully, the feedback link will be emailed to you a week later. All right, so you will have it and you will fill it up a week later. Thank you all for being here. All right, thank you very much. And we can now leave. Thank you. Oh, and this is Roger's email IDs and contact if anybody who does want to get in touch. Roger, can we have that back? Yeah. So if anybody wants those email IDs and how to get in touch.
This is my email here. Roger is my name. Storyteller is what I do. And this is the website, which could be more up to date than it is. I do have a collection of stories, stories for values education, and you could find more about that at this particular link. So rogerjenkins.com.sg for Singapore, SFVE India special.html.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. And we'll meet again. Thank you. Yes, we can leave. Roger, we can leave now. So, because there are lots of people. These emails that are coming in, can you, your emails are on the registration when you registered. So that's where the link will go to, the feedback link will go to. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, Roger, I think we can leave because otherwise, yeah, we can leave now. We can leave the session.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
You. A lot of positive comments out there, but yeah.
Oh, fine. If you could share those with me, share the chat with me, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Meenakshi. Very good.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
sir.
Basha. I really appreciate that invitation. It was fun. I look forward to receiving the feedback.
It was a lovely session. It was a very lovely session.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Fun. Okay. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye. See you.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, I need to, if I leave, then it will terminate. I need to assign a host.
Yes, you can.
Terminate. You
Is
can
that
leave.
okay?
Yes. Yeah, that's fine. In fact, it's not got terminated, so we can all leave now.
Okay.
Basha is the host now.
I'm leaving. Bye.
Okay, let's all leave.